Fox News alert, new questions as the 2020 presidential field is quickly growing, and so are tough questions for the candidates. This morning, Democratic Senator Kamala Harris announcing that she's in, declaring her run for president and saying she'll be launching her campaign in Oakland later this month. Now Senator Harris, as well as others, like New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, facing growing scrutiny over past policy stances. Senator Harris facing questions over her record as a district attorney and then California Attorney General. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand over illegal immigration and gun rights. Senator Gillibrand's past was the focus of a Washington Post piece this weekend, and it highlighted how her views quickly changed as she moved from the House to the Senate. And Senator Gillibrand was pressed yesterday over her past opposition to amnesty for illegal immigrants, even as today she calls President Trump's policies racist. Watch this.
They certainly weren't empathetic, and they were not kind, and I did not think about suffering in other people's lives. And one thing I did 10 years ago when I became senator and was going to represent 20 million people across our state, I recognized that a lot of places in my state were different, and I needed to understand what those constituents needed too.
I mean, I'll go right to our Democrat here. She opposed amnesty for illegal immigrants. She opposed driver's licenses for illegal immigrants, and she voted for increased funding for ICE officials, for ICE workers, and local law enforcement on deportations. So these are all things. I mean, it's a big record of things that she now calls racist.
I have more. Okay. She wanted to make English the official language. She boasted a perfect rating from the National Rifle Association and told reporters at one point for protection at home she slept with 2 long guns under her bed.
Awesome. Well,
she is running for the Republican
I had an A
nomination.
rating with the NRA as well, but you know what? I did not sleep with 2 long guns under my bed. So
can she say she evolved? I mean, what would you advise her? What would you advise her?
My advice is be consistent. I mean, you know, obviously she's not taking that advice.
Well, it's too late. So now what?
It's too late now. But so what she's trying to say is, look, I was from upstate New York. I was representing this constituency, you know, as in my House district. Now, the big state of New York is a different, deal. And now I had to change my views to accurately reflect, the views of the entire state of New York. Okay, fair enough. But I mean, I think that she's going to continue to face questions. I think what happens here, and this is a flaw in the primary process in general, is that everybody is lurching to the left. And we see this sometimes on the right as well, but everyone's lurching to the left so they can get out of a primary. Then what happens is that in a general election, they become unelectable because everything they did in the primary to get the far left votes is then held against them. And that is a problem. So I think we need to reform the primary system. I'm not necessarily sure how to approach that, but I personally think for me, consistency is the most important thing, because even though she's representing different people now, you need to have a core sense of values that underline your decision-making process.
Well, when you have a politician that's been running for her next job, which is what she's been doing her entire career, it's the Schumer model, the Weiner model, it's the New York political Democrat model.
Every state's got them, though.
But in New York, it's a very unique model, because every representative that has come through here for a number of years has done that. She's going to evolve on every issue and hope you forgot it. And the American people see that, and they're not going to buy her on a national scale. Here's my advice. Get out.
Okay, so but it's not about primaries, necessarily. I mean, this is about the idea that, she was when she was Kirsten Gillibrand before, who was just representing her district, had dramatically different views that she now calls racist.
Yes, and that's not an evolution. That is almost a form of mental illness. Like there is something that would be like Bernie Sanders coming out saying, you know what, I want a free market medical system. I want the government completely out of health care. And that's what she did. I mean, she made a diametric shift, and that's something that's really hard to explain, not to mention there are a lot of voters who look at the way she treated Al Franken without any due process. And there was protocol in the Senate that they could have followed, so he could have had his say.
Her former squash partner, she was the first senator to throw him under the bus, and then had
for her own gain.
Right. And speaking of own gain, she said that President Bill Clinton should have resigned over the Monica Lewinsky affair after basically.
She got Hillary Clinton's
good
seat.
luck raising money from Wall Street with that one.
But
lady.
And she's not the only one suffering from this, of course, as we mentioned at the beginning. Kamala Harris, too, in a New York Times op-ed. This was from a law professor out of California saying Kamala Harris was not a progressive prosecutor. The senator was often on the wrong side of history when she served as California's attorney general. This is talking about earlier in her career, and it's Laura Bazelon, I'm sure I butchered her name, but she's a law professor, former director of Loyola Law School and Project for the Innocent in Los Angeles. Another case where you have somebody coming back and sort of bringing to life not just things that you've said, but the way that you voted and behaved in the past, and now trying to run as something else. What's the answer? You say, I evolved? Or you say, what?
Well, I evolved in a better way. Well, it's better than the other candidates standing on the debate stage with you, I suppose.
You have to explain how you evolved.
But she didn't evolve.
But I evolved. You have to say why and how.
But this is the party of identity politics, is it not? So who is the most guilty of like a faux pas on that note? It might be Elizabeth Warren, allowing Harvard Law School to present you as their first woman of color, and then you came out with that DNA test, and you have to go back to the late 1700s to find your Native American heritage. She is going to get lambasted.
Okay, but you know what's amazing is as we watch this shutdown showdown, people saying, well, we can't trust the president because his views on the wall have changed. You know, his language has changed.
That's a great point.
And
we just heard that in the last block.
Slightly.
Yeah.
You know, his ideology is essentially the same. The manifestation is different, but this is a complete shift in ideology. And I'm actually very glad that Kamala Harris' record is coming out in California because it is abhorrent. And her view on civil liberties and her allowing people to rot in jail when they're essentially innocent, and she had the power to exonerate or free them, and she didn't take those opportunities. I'm very glad that the New York Times published that piece by the Loyola law professor.
Can I raise an issue really quickly? Are they going to hammer each other when they debate? Are they going to hammer each other when they're
That's
on
a great
the,
question.
when they're on the campaign trail, rather than just talking about President Trump?